Hey, what is up, guys? What's up, YouTube? Rules for Rebels here with Side Hustling Thursdays and Side Hustling Episode 12. So, if any of you guys hear Aventura and terrible singing in the background, I apologize for that. My girlfriend's in the room next to me, blasting Aventura and singing as she gets ready for work. So hopefully that doesn't interrupt today's episode. But today's story is a fun one. Today's story involves a couple buddies who decide to start a business and realize it's not going to work. They adapt and roll out an entirely different business. This is something that happens with a lot of side hustles, which is the reason I especially love this story. So in previous side hustles, we talked about the candy heart arbitrage hustle, which led into manufacturing because the supplier couldn't keep up with the demand. Just the other week, I told you guys about my storage auction business, which morphed into a blogging and ebook and later into an affiliate marketing and e-commerce business. Side hustles don't always work out, but it's about being fluid and adaptive, and that can turn a failed side hustle into a new and successful one, and that's what I think is really cool about today's story. Another fun thing about today's story is today's side hustle is actually something that turned into something pretty big. Now, side hustles are great. They bring in some extra money, maybe a couple $100s a month, maybe a couple $1,000s a month. But aside from just the cash, the confidence that you get from making money outside of a job and outside of a paycheck is absolutely amazing. So some side hustles, however, do wind up growing into something really, really big, and I want to share some of these stories so that you guys have kind of an idea of just what the possibilities are when you start a side hustle, how big something can possibly grow. So today's story features Joe Milano. Joe works at a cancer research facility in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In his spare time, he enjoys hanging out with his buddy Jack, with whom he shares a love of cocktail culture and gin. Joe and his buddy Jack, while hanging out, experimented with making a small batch of bathroom gin in their apartment, and one evening they started tossing around the idea of starting their own distillery and making their own gin. They were super excited and started doing a lot of research, but quickly learned it's a very complicated and very expensive business to get into. The alcohol industry is controlled both locally, municipally, statewide, and also federally. And it's not just complicated paperwork. The amount of money to acquire the licenses, the equipment, the bonds, the insurance, and everything else that they would need to start this business could run up to several $1,000,000. So that's a problem a lot of side hustles run into, either being short on funds or deciding to enter an industry which is heavily regulated, where red tape and the man get in the way of starting a business. So kind of a quick funny side note before we get into this, there was a great Netflix original show called Easy, starring James Franco's brother and a bunch of other stars as well. It took place in Chicago, and it was about a couple friends who started an illegal craft brewery. A really funny show, definitely recommend you check it out. But one other quick thing I wanted to add is that many times regulations get in the way of starting a business. Many lawyers will often advise people to go the route of asking for forgiveness rather than asking for permission. This basically means if you're not hurting anyone, if the regulation isn't that strictly enforced, and if it's kind of a bullshit rule and the penalties aren't that stiff, sometimes lawyers will advise you to essentially ignore the law, ignore the regulation, go ahead and do what you're going to do, and deal with the consequences if they happen. Now, in this story, I don't think that would be a good idea, as an illegal distillery could have the ATF and IRS kicking in your door and arresting you, but I thought this concept was worth mentioning, as a lot of times stupid rules, stupid regulations, and stupid laws can get in the way of starting a business. But getting back to the story of Joe and Jack, they were disappointed but not deterred, and they tweaked the idea, and instead of making the gin themselves, they would sell kits which would allow people to make their own small batch gin at home. So this allowed them to still start a business in this gin and cocktail niche that they loved, but without all the regulation and the hoops to jump through, since they wouldn't be the actual ones making or selling the alcohol. So what Joe and Jack did, they put together 250 gin kits in Joe's condo. They spread the word to friends and family. A couple websites picked up their story and did a write-up on their product, did reviews of their product, and the business and sales took off. So over the coming months and years, they improved operations, they improved their website, sales took off, selling to the tune of over 75,000 kits. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't just friends and family and gin lovers who took notice of their business. As so happens with businesses oftentimes, competitors also took notice, and they had other companies copying their business model, but not just that, even copying their website, copying their advertising, and almost copying their sales copy to a T with just some little tweaks. So this annoyed them, but they plugged along anyhow, and to this day they have sold well over 75,000 units. They've made some good money, and they couldn't be happier. The two friends who started off with a love of cocktails now have a business where they work together on something they love, making these gin kits and helping other people learn how to make gin. Now, Joe still has his day job at the cancer center, but he also has this side hustle, which is both rewarding and brings in quite a bit of extra money. So today's story is a transition story, having one idea, but with research, you learn it's not possible or not feasible. Now, oftentimes in a startup, the advice would be truck along, persevere, find a way to make it work. But again, this is a side hustle. They didn't want to leave their jobs. They didn't want to have to raise millions of dollars. They wanted something that they could get off the ground quickly. Didn't want to deal with raising the money, all the government regulations, etc. They couldn't open a distillery, so they changed their vision to helping other people make small batch gin at home, something where there were no regulations. And also, I think that almost makes it more fun, like the small batch craftsman doing things yourself, getting a kit and putting it together kind of industry is really big right now. I mean, look at all these kits where they give you all the ingredients to make a dinner. Everything's basically chopped and diced and ready to go. You just have to put them together. But by getting the consumer involved in the process and making them feel like they're part of it is often a really good business strategy. So this is probably actually better than their gin business. At the time, there was no competition, so really cool business. So I think this is probably the biggest lesson in today's story, how important it is to get started and take action. Oftentimes our first idea doesn't work out, but it's through exploring that idea that we figure out and find a new business or find a way to change that business into something which will work. Well, that's today's story, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were inspired, hope you were motivated, and I hope this stirs up an idea within you. Until next time, this is Rules for Rebels and Side Hustle Thursdays, signing off. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, comment, subscribe, and share.